where how do we go about bringing the country back together? Because at a certain point, inflection points happen, and it feels like we're getting even more dangerously close to an inflection point. January 6th was clearly one, but with an upcoming election, what do we do?
Well, the complexion of this country is changing. The browning of America is happening right before our eyes. And along with that comes challenges, but it becomes real opportunities. Some of the biggest challenges are there are people who don't look like the complexion of the country that's changing, who fear that they will no longer have the power and influence they have over those black and brown people that are shifting the narrative and shifting the demographics of this country. The other part to that is there are people who cannot process and digest that. So the easiest thing for them to do is to act out. That's why you see white nationalism, white supremacy, Christian white nationalism, bigotry, and hate at an all-time high. These keyboard thugs on the internet, all-time high. White supremacy, all-time high. Because the fear of the rug being pulled out from under them is happening in real time. And so with that, I think we have to make sure as black Americans, because I can't speak for other communities, that we stay locked in at the hip. And we not let people divide us, black men versus black women versus black men. Our shared power has come in our collective power. When black men and black women rise together, the young and the not so young, that's when we've had success in this country. When the whole divide and conquer strategy was implemented by the white slave mentality so that we can be divided to make certain that we do not rise. And we've got to get back to the basics in our community. And part of that means yelling in the places we agree and whispering in the places we disagree. And you don't always have to fight these battles out loud. We've always had opportunities to do things behind the scenes, if you will, or when the lights are not shining so bright and work out so we show a united front. Now I get it. There's a generation of people being influenced by the internet. There's a generation of people being influenced by being an influencer. And intention becomes the most powerful drug out there in the ecosystem, especially when you add social media. But we also have to know the dangers and challenges that come along that for our people in our community.
We're not that far from an election, and we've got a former president who, under his administration, saw over 1 million Americans die. He mismanaged COVID. He mismanaged race relations. He attempted a coup on our government. He still refuses to acknowledge an election. But yet we know that tens of millions of Americans are going to vote for him. How is it that this election is still so close? And what does that say about us as a country, that he is not only an option, but if the election was today, could potentially win?
Well, it says that we have work to do. And it says that all progress ain't permanent, as I said a couple times here. And it also says that not all skin folk ain't kinfolk. Because black Americans that put this scenario in real-time play.
Yeah.
It also says there are people who depending on us not to be engaged and showing up. And that's in there. If you're a black American, especially a black man, can you imagine having 91 counts?
No. He says that's why he's going to get more support, though, because
we couldn't even get a job interview if we had a weed charge.
Shit, I can't get a job interview now.
It's frustrating to know that this man applying for the highest job in the world is a few months potentially away of having that job, because there are people who may not understand the dynamics that come along with it. So it says we got work to do. It also says that we, those of us who work in democratic politics, have to understand that people are not paying attention in the same ways as they used to. And there are a lot of things competing for our time. And so we can't just say Trump is bad, he's racist and all that. We've got to give people a reason to show up. And I think that has to be part of the strategy moving forward over the next 5 to 6 months.
It's going to be really interesting because They are. You're right. They're counting on us not showing up, on African Americans, especially African American men not showing up, because they do know when we show up, not only do we win, but we win by huge majorities.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm scared. I'm not gonna lie. I'm really nervous at this point, because with things as close as they are, we have no idea what's going to happen in the fall, and the stakes are so high. I mean, to think that my grandparents were the first integrated high school class in DC, and DC was the first city to integrate. And to think that my grandmother is alive and has now watched Roe versus Wade overturned. She's watched potentially the Civil Rights Act signed and then parts of it broken down and potentially now it being repealed. We had a black president, and now we basically have white supremacists for a president. It's a scary time. And what is your message to not just black voters, but Americans in general, Republicans included, that just, I get that people are scared. And I had this conversation with Spicer. Everybody's scared. We're all scared of our neighbors because of the way conversations are. But how do we figure out some sort of like common ground?
In the words, paraphrasing Loretta Lynch, we may read from different books of the Bible. We may call our gods by different names. But we all are Americans. And we care about the future of this country. And I'm paraphrasing Loretta Lynch. We've got to figure out there's some things that we've got to help have clarity around. There's some things that are non-debatable. Democracy and freedom are non-debatable. Basic fundamental rights are non-debatable, whether you're black, white, Democrat, Republican. Your economic bill of health, and that being successful, non-debatable. Access to affordable quality health care, non-debatable. There's some things just non-debatable.
Yeah.
And we've got to get back to the posture where there's no compromise. Defending democracy and our allies and partners, non-debatable, including Ukraine. We've got to get back to that. We've got to straighten our postures a bit, because we've let a few loud people seem like they're the majority, and that has controlled the political temperature out here in every ecosystem or every corner of the American political square. And we've tried to sweep so many things under the rug, like racism, bigotry, and hate, to generations of Americans continue to trip over those things and fall. And that's why we're bleeding externally and internally. And people see the blood. We've got to do some things different. So I think it's going to take a generation of leaders who don't care about what party label you subscribe to. They care about the principles. They're not looking for likes and retweets. They're not looking for political theater, but they're looking to influence policy that changes the game for everyone. Think about the 1960s when we were fighting for things, basic fundamental things that we rightly deserve. We had to fight for them. Even though every Republican wasn't on board, every Republican eventually fell into this idea that these things are not up for discussion.
Yeah.
Fair housing, clean drinking water, and so forth. And we've made progress, but minus Joe Biden, $80 billion to remove lead pipes from every community, those things will still be there. Minus Jim Clyburn and his advocacy, access to affordable quality internet in every community would not be a reality. Our veterans who keep us safe at home and abroad, minus them having a president in Joe Biden who understands that we needed a PAC Act to make sure they get their benefits, we wouldn't have it. Minus a president understanding that the development that HBCUs has brought to the table, $16 billion in investments, wouldn't be there. I mean, I can go on and on about things that this president has prioritized. Think about Breonna Taylor. Look what the president did, banning chokeholds at the federal level, banning no-knock warrants. No other president had to deal with that and did deal with that. Student loans. I mean, look, making things at home again. We saw what this pandemic did for us. Cut black child poverty in half, Michael Starr Hopkins. cut black child
We
poverty.
need you to be the messenger. We need to put you out there every day on TV giving this message, because this is what people need to hear.
It's sad and disgusting. Look, executive order on child care to make it affordable. Think about how many single black moms out there, or even moms, period, black or white, suburban, rural, or urban, are dealing with the reality and the high cost of child care. Think about that.